Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole King, Dia, Lauren Frey, and the upcoming Mouth of the Dragon. Please look forward to that. And today, this will be the first Black Cat Book Club. This will be something I hope becomes a reoccurring type of video on the channel in which I more increasingly talk about the books I'm reading, because I'm going through books all the time, and a lot of times I don't really know them very well or don't have enough knowledge to really talk about them in length. But today I've been reading something lately that I do feel a little bit comfortable talking about at length, and that something is something I listened to recently on Audible, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. The second, my second least favorite Harry Potter book that I recently had the pleasure of sitting through and experiencing again. And it's been a long time since I've listened to any Harry Potter audiobooks. Listened to the first 5 in 2019, took an extended break, and now I finally returned with the Half-Blood Prince. Got through all of that, and now I'm listening to Narnia instead of listening to Deathly Hallows like I probably should be. But Half-Blood Prince, listening to it in a void, this seems to be the way I always seem to go through the Harry Potter books, in which I blow through the first 5 very quickly, take a break, and then go through the last 2. I don't really know why that is, because it's probably because the Harry Potter books, when I first started reading them, the 5 books were already available. And then I had to wait for book 6 and 7, so I kind of tore through the first 5 over and over and over again. I kind of got in that habit of doing it. And then book 6, wasn't my favorite, and I never really got into reading 6 and 7 endlessly the way I did the first 5. Right? I still know them very well, but they're not. I'm not quite as fond as them as I am the first 5. And a big part of the reason is I don't like book 6. I think much like book 2, book 6 suffers from being too much of things we've seen before. I think book 6 leans way too heavily on the general Harry Potter formula. I don't think it really has all that much of an overall plot or mystery. I think it really suffers from a sort of build-up syndrome, for lack of a better term. I'm not really sure how else to describe it, but I've heard people say this, in that Half-Blood Prince feels way too much like it's building up to the final book, rather than being a great book in its own right. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the entry directly before this had so much going on with the Ministry plotline and Voldemort working behind the scenes, and Harry dealing with the fallout from all of that, problems with his friends and the people around him, and how that's directly affecting him. It's a super emotional, really powerful novel in a lot of ways. But unfortunately, it all kind of neatly comes to an end in book 5, and Voldemort is out in the open by book 6, which means that a lot of the build up to book 5 doesn't really carry over to book 6. Book 5 is all about the Ministry denying that Voldemort had returned, and then book 6 is them kind of acknowledging it, and then them taking steps to begin with. So it's open war. That's the situation we're in book 6, where the Wizarding World is well aware that they are about to get fucked by Voldemort's snake-like cock. It is going to be a bloodbath. Actually, it already is. By the time Cornelius Fudge goes to see the Muggle Prime Minister, Voldemort has already killed several people. He's mass murdered several Muggles. He's threatening to do more, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Dumbledore is old and tired. The Ministry can't stop him. Harry Potter is unable to do anything. It is a complete disaster. Voldemort is already causing havoc, and he seems completely unstoppable in this book. Much like Voldemort is not that much of a prevalent force in this novel. He never directly does anything in regards to involving himself with Harry or any of the other characters. His thing right now it seems like he's kind of like a JRPG villain at the end of the game, just waiting for the heroes to catch up to him. And the entire thing is kind of building up this sense of dread that like things outside of Hogwarts are getting really, really, really bad, right? But inside Hogwarts, it's basically business as usual. Like Harry's more concerned about like Quidditch and like schoolwork and stuff like that, and like he's having like relationship problems. You know, all three of the characters for the first time ever are having relationship problems, and that's a large portion of the book is just Harry kind of wandering around, just trying to figure out what Draco Malfoy is doing in Hogwarts. Like he believes that that Draco is working under Voldemort's orders to do something, right? And the thing with this is that this should be interesting, this should be fascinating, this should be a big deal. But the way like the other characters handle this, like listening to it again, it's like baffling how like Ron and Hermione in particular kind of treat the whole thing, the whole theory of Malfoy being a Death Eater like it's a joke. Like it couldn't possibly be true. Like, oh man, he's underage. He couldn't do shit, bro. Like do you think Voldemort cares about that? Do you think Voldemort is just like, okay, you have to be 17 to join? No, of course not. Like nothing about that makes any sense. Like Harry has lots of reasons to suspect Draco Malfoy of wrongdoing, and yet no one believes him. Like, not McGonagall, not Ron and Hermione, literally no one. And other than Dumbledore, well, Dumbledore says he doesn't believe him, but really he does, because Dumbledore knows everything, apparently. That's another thing I've been noticing when going back through these books, is that, like, Dumbledore is so all-knowing. It's so inexplicable. It's like... And yet he chooses to share nothing with Harry. Like, even in Book 6, where he explicitly tells him he's going to be honest with him going forward, he never actually is. Like, in this book, there are several things that Dumbledore specifically keeps from Harry in regards to his own personal history and Snape's history, and I suppose even Voldemort's history, by not, like, acknowledging the very real possibility that, you know, the thing that I figured out, I don't know how much I should get into spoilers here, that Harry himself is a Horcrux, right? Like, I remember speculating on that as when I first read it. It seemed kind of obvious to essentially to everyone who had been paying attention up to this point that was the problem. It's just it's so frustrating in that regard. I feel like the novel needed to have a lot more focus on an actual plot, as opposed to some vague threat in the outside world, right? I find like the relationship drama to be middling and boring. I don't find I find Ron to be an asshole in this. Like, I typically like Ron. I would say I like him more than most people. All I hear these days is from most fans is how like most people don't like Ron and how they think he's lazy and stupid and how Hermione is a way better friend than Harry. I'm not sure how much I agree with that, because Harry clearly likes being around Ron more than Hermione. Hermione's like an arrogant little shit, and you know, Ron's been there since the beginning. I don't really subscribe to the theory that Hermione is a better friend than Ron, but Ron in this is just unbearable for the most part. Like, you know, attacking people on the Quidditch field, like being a morose little shit, like fucking Lavender Brown in the common room, like getting into fights with Ginny, like treating Hermione like shit. Like, it is awful what he does, right? And you can write this off as like typical teenage horseshit. But I think this is one of those instances where the movie actually nailed this idea a lot better, I think, and just making the relationship drama make more sense and come off as a bit more natural, as being like, yeah, this is how kids actually act. This Joe really struggled writing romance in the series, I think. A lot of people feel like Ron and Hermione don't really work together as a couple, and I think a big reason for that is just how they spend so much time fighting and not actually having a good relatable relationship, you know, like not actually being there and being supportive of one another. It's like a Sundari relationship that goes on way too long. Like, some people feel like it couldn't possibly work. Now, my feeling on this is that we see things since we see the series primarily from Harry's perspective, that they have a little bit more like of a wholesome relationship when he's not around, and like they take on like the bickering couple thing when he's there, but I don't know. That's just kind of my theory on how this works out. Like, knowing that they do get married in the end, and they do seem relatively happy. It is it's one of those things that I think could have been handled better. Now, I've been complaining a lot about the book. Alexa, stop. I've been complaining a lot about the book, and I really, really, really shouldn't have spent so much time talking about my complaints, because it makes it sound like I hate it. On the contrary, I like this book a lot. Like, I spent like 10 minutes bitching about all my problems with the novel, but really, I do like the feeling of dread. I do like a lot of the revelations, the ideas put forward, like the very real character deaths. I just wish it all came together better. Like, I wish it wasn't so focused on getting to the end and tried to focus more on being its own thing, like every other book in the series. I think the only thing, I think one of the big things that makes this novel work is that we do learn a lot more about Voldemort. We do learn the full picture of where he came from, why the way he is, and what Dumbledore has been doing to stop him, and like why he's such a dangerous individual. And it is downright fascinating stuff. Like, it's not something I really thought about when I first read this, but up to this point, we hadn't gotten the exact details of what Voldemort was like growing up before. We had some information from like Chamber of Secrets and stuff like that, Goblet of Fire. We had like a general idea of like how he killed his father, and things like that. But then like this book like kind of gives us like the full picture of just how he progressed throughout the years, and how he kind of developed, and how he became Lord Voldemort, the most feared dark wizard of the age. And it is very interesting stuff. I really, really enjoyed it. Probably, I don't think I'm exaggerating. It might be one of my one of my favorite villain origin stories ever. I can't think of anything that like resonated so strongly with me. I've been trying to like go back through other classic fantasy stories and think about someone else who has left this kind of an impression on me, and I can't really think of anyone. I'm reading a lot more this year than I have in a long, long time, so I'm hoping I'll discover something else. But this kind of goes back into what I've been saying for a long time, is that like people always suggest there are better fantasy stories than Harry Potter. There are better writers than J.K. Rowling. There are better things to read. Well, where are they? I'm desperately looking for them, and I can't think of any. Like, the only thing recently I've read that I think I enjoy as much as Harry Potter is probably Watership Down, and that's a masterpiece in its own right, but it's quite different. There's no reason not to read both. You know what I mean? Like, I welcome the chance to appreciate something a little bit different, a little bit unique, something different than something I've read up a zillion times before. But I still haven't found it. And like this book came out in like what, like 2005, 2006. I still haven't found it. like I still haven't found something I enjoy more than this. Yeah, the book has a really strong climax. I feel like it could have gone a little bit longer. I remember like reading it for the first time and thinking it was a bit rushed. I remember being disappointed there are like only 30 chapters compared to Order of the Phoenix's 36 or 37. I believe it's 36. Like Harry gets with Ginny and then breaks up with her in 5 chapters. Like, what's up with that? Like, it makes sense, like, narrative-wise, because, like, oh, man, I gotta go beat Voldemort. But, like, we only got 5 chapters of them together. And it's, like, like, they're off-screened. Like, it's like they have this elaborate relationship, like, off-screen, and you don't see it. It sucks. Like, I think there was a reason back in the day, I preferred Harry with Cho, because Cho is actually there. Like, they actually have conversations. Like, they're awkward and stuff like that because of, like, Cedric Diggory's, like, death kind of hanging over them. But like, you can kind of see that, like, they have stuff in common and they kind of want to make it work. Ginny is better for him. She really is. Like, she's funny. She has all these, like, they have all these things in common. Like, they have fun together. Like, I was surprised at how much I liked Ginny going into this. Because, again, much like Ron and Hermione, like, you see people suggest that Harry would have been better with Hermione or Luna, or, like, if I had my way, the Asian chick. But no, Ginny is the perfect fit for him in a lot of ways. And, like, it took a long time to get to this point, and it really is something that really should have been built up more over the books. I've seen people, like, suggest it came out of nowhere in like books 5 and 6. That, like, that's around the point that, like, Ginny started becoming her own character instead of being, like, relatively shy and out of the way for the most part. I really like the way she developed over the past couple of books. I like her increased role. I like how supportive she is of Harry, and how he accepts, like, how she accepts the fact that he's dumping her at the end. How supportive she is. It's great. Like, I really enjoy them together. Like, which surprised me. The ending, I think, is actually one of the most well-known plot twists in the series. Everyone knows this one. I'm not spoiling anything. Snape kills Dumbledore, and for the first time, I actually got emotional reading it. I actually, like, felt like I was going to cry. Maybe it was the performance, or maybe it just kind of, like, hit me, like, after all these years later. I didn't cry the first time. I just really, really got into it. Like, it was weird coming back to it and kind of getting emotional over something I've never been all that invested in. But, like, they really do sell it to you, right? Like, Dumbledore is, like, going out of his way to protect Draco Malfoy, who doesn't even like him, and Draco just ends up getting things set up. So Severus Snape steps in and fucking kills Dumbledore. It is crazy. It is really good. It is fascinating. Like, the ending, like, seeing Scrimgeour, like, interrogate, like, there are so many good individual moments here. I think that's the good way to describe it, is that, like, Voldemort's backstory is great, but it doesn't tie into, like, the romance subplots at all. Like, some of the revelations are great, but they don't tie into, like, the other things at all. Like, it feels like this book, more than anything else, was more concerned with tying up loose ends and getting things ready for the finale, as opposed to, like, being its own thing. And I think it really suffers because of that. I really do. But in spite of all that, the entire Harry Potter series is well worth a read and is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time.